Hey guys, in this video we're going to be looking at the Inquisitors in Star Wars and how they relate to the Inquisition of the medieval period and witch hunters, using examples from X-Men the Mutants, Star Wars Obi Wan Kenobi and Doctor Sleep. We will examine if the witch hunts of the 16 and 1700s were actually the hunting of Jedi.
Three words. Are mutants dangerous?
You know who we are.
Inquisitors.
You know what we do?
You hunt Jedi.
Know why we are here. There's a Jedi hiding on this planet.
Throughout time, there have been many legends and tales associated with witches. So what are some of these beliefs? Folklore related to witches has been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Witches have been blamed for virtually every kind of problem imaginable. If livestock became ill and died, a family member became sick, or someone just experienced a sudden run of bad luck, it was often thought that a witch might be the culprit.
All we want is information. If anyone knows anything about a Jedi.
Senator, it is a fact that mutants who have come forward and revealed themselves publicly have been met with fear, hostility, even violence.
If a woman was found guilty of being a witch, by far the most common form of punishment was being burned at the stake. This was a method of execution which involved tying the woman to a stake and setting her on fire. It is estimated that from the 1400s through the 1600s, more than 50,000 women were executed for practicing witchcraft, including 20 during the famous witch trials that took place between February 1692 and May of 1693 in Salem, Massachusetts.
Do you know the key to hunting Jedi, friend? It is patience.
You've been accused of a crime you did not commit. It's impossible to prove your innocence. If you insist that you're innocent anyway, you'll likely be found guilty and executed. But if you confess, apologize, and implicate others for good measure, you'll go free. Do you give a false confession or risk a public hanging?
Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail. But the Jedi code is like an itch. He cannot help it. So he steps in and saves your saloon. Maybe he's looking for people like him.
The beginnings of another stage of human evolution. These mutations manifest at puberty and are often triggered by periods of heightened emotional stress.
Pain purifies steam. Fear too, so you understand.
In my opinion, there's only two answers for this. If we look at the male term for a witch, it's a warlock or a wizard. And the term warlock reminds me of warlords. The term wizard reminds me of a ward. Warlocks and wards were very prominent in the medieval era, often rising to extreme power.
Some men seem to have been born with a natural talent for combat. Some warriors had humble origins. Others had been born into noble families. There were even kings responsible for commanding great nations. These men, who learned to master the chaos of battle and command their fellows to victory, became known as the warlords.
There could have very much been wizards and warlocks acting under the guise of warlords and wards. We can look at the switch between matriarchy and patriarchy, in which women were being stripped of power and positions. History doesn't exactly tell us that women ever had power and positions, but we all know deep in our hearts that they did, as all men once came from a woman. Females receive one X chromosome from each parent, but males receive an X chromosome from their mother and a Y chromosome from their father. So in terms of passing on genetics, it will always be the female that inherits the key chromosomes, not the male, which may be the main reason which females were hunted.
We call today DNA. And they record very, very specifically that the important gene that moves through this from generation to generation is strictly a female gene. The DNA structure that gives the ability for true kingship comes through the mother, always. One can go back to 3,500, 4,000 BC and find the female symbol is a cup or a chalice. In its simplest form, it is simply this circle with the red cross in it.
Words beginning with matri remind me of matrix, matri X, X being the key chromosome.
According to the Bible, he had planned to kill Jesus and had failed. Herod ordered the killing of every child in Bethlehem under the age of 2. But there was at least one boy who escaped.
I'm only going to briefly touch upon this, but for those that don't know, obviously the Bible talks about Jesus up until a certain age, and then I believe from around 12 to 30, the years of Jesus, you don't hear nothing, you don't know what's happened. But if we go to the Aquarium Gospel of Jesus Christ, it tells us the trials and tribulations of Jesus throughout various countries where he became a Christ, a title just like Jedi. So he undertook initiations in India, Egypt, Greece, passed all the initiations and became Christ.
I have here a list of names of identified mutants living right here in the United States. Now here's a girl in Illinois who can walk through walls. Now what's to stop her from walking into a bank vault, or into the White House, or into their houses? The truth is that mutants are very real, and they are among us.
So what we don't see in modern times is inquisitions, people being burnt on stakes, people being accused necessarily of witches, wizards and warlocks. This could be still happening, but behind closed doors. Things that we do see today that could interlink into all this is the amount of missing peoples that go missing every year. Children, men and women. This would mainly be looking at children, as we saw in the previous clips of Dr. Sleep, how they would be harnessing the energy from the children. The reason they would have targeted the women in the first place was to stop the children, such like Jesus Christ, coming through with the abilities. The ones that did come through, they would then take the power, try to harness and use for their own purpose, as we see in rituals. This is not to mention the secret CIA programs such as MK Ultra that were undergoing, trying to develop these abilities in people that they could control. How they are finding these people today, would most likely be with technology or supernatural abilities such as remote viewing. Let's take a little clip of Dr. Sleep, how she finds the children. Now you might be asking yourself, why isn't there a lot of mutants in the world? Why isn't there all these superpowers? Ultimately, the answer to that is obviously a lot of these were hunted down and killed. The rest were captured and put into governmental control. And then the majority of the public now, if any kid, for example, was to hear voices, see anything, have any kind of paranormal abilities, but they would be seen as a mental health issue, and that would be to diagnose medication. These children will be put on medication to stop these thoughts, sights, sounds coming to themselves until it's suppressed completely. Medication is to suppress our abilities. Ultimately, back when all this was taking place, people were very in touch with nature. You know, there was hardly any technology. There isn't any technology. There was nothing like that. So people were in silence and peace. They found something within them on a daily basis. We still have this within us, but it's hard to bring forth due to the condition and programming being put on ourselves. This is through TV, frequencies, signals, education, Wi-Fi. Us humans have disconnected with nature over the years, and it doesn't allow for these powers to exist as strong as they once did. Back when they did, there was no radio waves, no TVs, no frequencies, no signals. It was easier to connect to these forces. There are still stories of these people finding these powers, mostly in India. Once they have found that thing within inside themselves, which most of us have, they then spend years perfecting and bringing that forth. And that brings on cities, aka superpowers, which many of the public don't believe. But just like Peter Pan and the ability to fly, if you don't believe, it won't happen.
Stay hidden. Live a normal life.
What about the people that need us? What about the fight?
The fight is done. We lost.
The war between light and dark was fought long ago, and it's been hidden from us. In that battle, dark won. But as you can see in every movie, in every story, light always prevails. And it's up to us, the forgotten Jedi, to bring forth our power and change the world for the greater good. Peace and love to you people.
Just as a stroke victim can learn to walk again, I believe you too can return to your full power. Your abilities are still in here. You just need to remember.
We're looking at early stages of bodily supplements. We're looking at stages before the drug companies came in. We're looking at times before alchemy and early laboratories and things like that. We're simply looking at things could be done with natural products. We begin to find an old ritual in Egypt, in Canaan, in Babylonia, in Mesopotamia, generally in Akkad and down into Sumer, same ritual. It's called the ritual of the starfire. Why isn't the symbol a dragon? Why is the symbol this red cross? Well, in actual fact, one discovers that the symbol is a dragon. The red cross, the dew cup, is a dragon. The circle, it transpires, is a serpent, clutching its own tail, creating everlasting, the unity. So suddenly the dragon is linked with the Dew Cup, is linked with the Holy Grail, and it's why the Grail Kings were still called in the Middle Ages Pendragons. It had nothing whatever to do with snakes. The dragon was always he who held the knowledge, he who from one found out, he whom could divine, and that is the root of why we call gods and deities divine, because they held the roots of the serpent or the Nahash to the divining. They had the knowledge, they had the knowing, they were the kings, and the serpent of the garden, we are told, was Enki. Once one looks a little further into that, it's more interesting to see that there are more complex medical devices using serpents. The one that we actually know perhaps is the winged caduceus of Hermes with the two coiling serpents around it. This actually is not just the emblem of medical associations worldwide today. It was actually one of the earliest symbols of the early dragon court. The theory that this is a winged caduceus is a myth. It has very little to do with Hermes or with Mercury. The records tell us that the staff that stands centrally is the spinal column. The nervous system are the coiling serpents that go around it. The two wings at the top are the ventricles of the brain, left and right, and that little spot in between is the pineal gland. In the early days, therefore, we're looking at something that is going to evolve into an area, a specific area of what we later became to call alchemy. It's not the whole of alchemy, it's a little part of it. But we can now see where it's going. We can now see that we're dealing with a natural substance that eventually has to become a purposely contrived drug, for want of a better word. And this was one of the key secrets, really, of the early mystery schools, was the upholding of the starfire ritual. It is one of the secrets that Freemasonry says have been lost. They know that there's a secret somewhere back in ancient Egypt and Sumeria, but they're not quite sure what it is. Well, this is one of the secrets. The secret of the secretion, of the ritual. So when did it go? When did we suddenly forget all this stuff? Why was it so important? Why did we suddenly just have people who bled their meat and weren't of much consequence, really, until later days? It actually happened when their latter-day descendants, whether in the Jewish tradition or in the later Christian tradition, decided to actually start forging history. Not just translating it, but interpreting it to suit a vested interest of the moment. The one thing in the Jewish faith, as in the Christian faith, that was absolutely predominant was that any importance played by the female had to go. Not on. This is male stuff now. Priests, that's what we are. So it gets lost.